Good morning. I'm Mary Moglia-Cannon, your service leader. My pronouns are she, her. I'm joined by Jeremy Jonczyk, who will be on clarinet today, so we have a special treat from Jeremy. He is also our AV specialist. We're very grateful and happy to welcome back Reverend Tina Simpson, who will talk to us today about care of the Unitarian soul. Welcome, Tina. Welcome to all members, friends, and visitors to the UU Church of East Aurora. UUEA strives to be a community in which all people are welcome, regardless of belief systems, ethnicities, race, gender, sexual orientation, or economic standing. Welcome to a safe space. The Zoom will continue for 10 minutes past the end of the service so that people can chat. In the meantime, you will be muted once the service begins. So for now, let's just take a few seconds to wave hi to each other. Before we begin, are there any announcements? Rich?
Yes, I've got two announcements. The first one is that Rebecca and I are going to be the presenters next week. We're going to do I'm going to do a presentation on the trends in church membership and the status of our society, and then talk about our church in particular and what we've accomplished lately and where we're going. So that'll be next week. And then secondly, I just wanted to announce that we submitted a grant application to the Chalice Lighters program and we won. And so we'll have an additional $20,000 to spend for the future committee work, which approximately doubles the available funds. So that's going to be huge for us. So we're very excited. Thank you to the future committee who helped come up with the ideas that we used for the submission. And thanks to Mary for working with me on the grant application.
Keith, I see a hand up.
Yeah, I got a quick announcement. Some of you remember our friend Timothy Redmond, who lived in East Aurora, and he spoke at our church several times on critical thinking and political topics. He's a social studies teacher in Williamsville also. Well, I got an email from him yesterday. He's written a book. So his book will be available on Amazon. It's expected to ship in May, but you can pre-order it now. And here's a picture of it. It's called Political Tribalism in America. Tim's a really good writer. I mean, he wrote a lot of incredible columns for the East Aurora Advertiser. So really looking forward to it. And I'll paste the Amazon link in the chat if you want to pre-order it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see anybody else's hand up. I would like to share that February is an exciting month on multiple fronts, starting with Teresa McCarthy and Lillian Williams of UB returning to speak. On February 27th, our speaker will be community activist India Walton. India will be here in person. And we also have our small groups, our New Yorker group and our book club groups. We have section B of our starting point class with Reverend Peter House that begins on February 2nd. That class is full, but he is doing another one in April. So if anybody is interested in that, please reach out. And as we will hear from Reverend Tina today, we have 3 different Soul Matters groups this year. So there's lots happening. Please be sure to read your newsletter and open your mail. Anyone else have an announcement? Okay, thank you. I begin this service by acknowledging that the land on which UUEA operates remains to this day the territory of the Seneca Nation, a member of the Haudenosaunee Six Nations Confederacy. We pause to consider the legacies of violence, displacement, and resettlement, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and share ideas here. May we fully come to appreciate the lessons the Haudenosaunee offer us about democracy, care of the earth and water, and respect for the interconnected web of life. Our prelude, played by Jeremy Jonczyk, is Wind on the Water by Ron Klusmeyer. Thank you, Jeremy. Please join me as I light the chalice. The chalice lighting words are printed on your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. And we turn to Reverend Tina for our opening words.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I'm just looking to see if my face comes up or if Mary's is still on.
I see you as speaker, so.
Okay, so good morning. And as I said, I'm delighted to be here with you today. A few weeks ago, before the snow came and the weather was still warm on a bright, early Saturday morning, I decided to go to Wegmans and do my shopping before anything else happened. And as I was walking from my car out to the store, I caught in my eye a vision of a woman just sort of trucking through the parking lot. I mean, she had on great sneakers and she was moving at a great pace. And I was really wondering what she was doing in the parking lot. I thought, okay, she's taking care of her physical needs. She's getting exercise early in the morning. And then I noticed something really interesting. She was holding in her right hand a bright turquoise set of rosary beads. They were kind of dangling down against the black color of her coat, and she was walking really fast. And I thought for a minute, those are rosary beads. And if you're not familiar with that, rosary beads are Catholic prayer beads where people say a prayer and touch a bead as they say each prayer. It's a ritual. At first I thought, well, maybe she lost her car and she's kind of looking for some divine intervention to help her. But then I thought, no, that's not what's going on here. I think what's happening is she's not only taking care of her physical need for exercise and fresh air on this beautiful early morning, she's taking care of her soul as well. Super multitasking on her part. And I thought to myself, that's why we go to church, right? Even though we can't be together, going to church is a way we take care of ourselves. We take care of our physical needs to be together in spite of the fact that we're on Zoom again. And we take care of our spiritual needs by connecting and remembering who we are. So welcome to our celebration of life. It is, in fact, delightful to be with you again.
This is the time in our service where we have space for our offertory. And for us, it's a reminder that UUA cannot do anything without members and friends showing up and supporting each other. So sincere thanks to those who participate in events, share their time, share their talents, or are in a position to be generous with their treasures. If you are inclined to give after the service, you may do so online at uuea.org. And now Jeremy will play Spirit of Life. So this is the time in our program when we strengthen our circle of connection with each other by sharing our personal joys and concerns. If anyone would like to share, please unmute yourself to be heard, and I will light a candle.
Mary, I have a friend, former coworker. I'll just say that her first name is Brandy, and she is going through a very long and arduous cancer battle. So I'd just like to light a candle for her.
I would like to mention once again my concern for all those who are suffering with COVID. I continue to hear of cases in our community.
Yes, of those suffering with COVID, Lisa, Juan, and Esteban Rivera are have it now, even though they're fully vaccinated and boosted, and it's no picnic.
Mary, my niece, who never asks me for prayers, but she has continually for her husband, Greg, who he's in the hospital and they don't know what's wrong with him. They live in Daytona. She won't give me specifics. My family won't give me specifics. I just know that he's not in good shape. And he always was in great shape. He's only 50 years old. And so all I can do is pray. So thank you.
Anyone else? I'd like to light a candle for Joe Bertuca, who is still in the hospital, and for the Bertuca family. For the joys and concerns that go unspoken and remain in our hearts, one last candle. We have two readings today. The first is an excerpt from the poem Maybe by Mary Oliver. Nobody knows what the soul is. It comes and goes like the wind over water. Sometimes for days you don't think of it. Maybe after the sermon, after the multitude was fed, one or two of them felt the soul slip forth like a tremor of pure sunlight. And the second reading is from the book A Hidden Wholeness by Parker Palmer. The soul is shy. Just like a wild animal, it seeks safety in the dense underbrush, especially when other people are around. If we want to see a wild animal, the last thing we do is go crashing through the woods, yelling for it to come out. Here ends today's readings. Reverend Tina Simpson is an interfaith minister ordained through One Spirit Interfaith Seminary and certified in spiritual counseling. She is an associate member of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association. She has a spiritual counseling practice and advocates for the well-being of children through the Children's Agenda Interfaith Collaborative. Tina is also Minister Emerita of the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York, where she faithfully served for 8 years as Minister of Spiritual Development and Pastoral Care. She retired in June 2018. Tina travels this life with her soulmate, Joe, her children, abundant grandchildren, and her delightful dog, Roscoe. Today, she helps us explore how to care for the Unitarian Universalist soul. And here is Reverend Tina, Care for the Soul 101.
So when I was preparing for this sermon, I consulted with my husband, Joe, about the use of the word soul for an atheist UU. You see, Joe's been a member of the UU Church for more than 30 years, but he holds very strong to his humanist beliefs. These beliefs preclude any use of the type of sacred language that I feel comfortable with, such as soul or grace, blessing or prayer, and especially the words holy or divine. I asked him if there might not be some other words that would suffice to replace the word soul, and he came up with heart or deep values. He did acknowledge that he felt he had a part of himself that was deep and private and internal, yet the word soul didn't work for him at all. I thought about this for a few weeks because indeed, sacred words, especially the word soul, work for me. And Joe and I, well, we've been married close to 40 years, so I suspect disagreement on this topic is very possible, even in a close relationship. And perhaps, friends, it's not so important to agree on the word as it is to take care of this precious, deep, knowing part of ourselves and each other. So what does the word soul mean to us as Unitarian Universalists? And is it something we need to pay attention to? Is it something we need to tend? For me, the answer is a resounding yes. Now, we may disagree on the terms and the needs to translate sacred words to fit into our beliefs, but once we do that, I believe we do indeed need to attend to this part of us that holds our most tender self, our deepest love and fear, our vulnerabilities and our strongest passions. I believe this tending sustains us during the most challenging parts of our lives. After my conversation with Joe, I thought a lot about the deep soul experiences I've had as a person, but also as a minister. Good or bad, these are the experiences that bring me to my knees, sometimes figuratively, but often literally. Maybe you've had them too. The birth of your child or grandchild comes to mind so easily as something that touches the deepest part of us. But so does the death of a loved one. A tragic diagnosis, a moment you say your marriage vows, your child's deployment to a war zone, the first kiss eagerly anticipated, a crystal blanket of snow in the moonlight. These are events and experiences that leap out of ordinary time into a time that slows down, a time that catches our breath, a time that demands reverence. To me, this is sacred time, soul time. I believe in these moments that attention must be paid, for they are the essence of life. They are the soul deep experiences. Reverence is required to feel the richness. They must be shared with others. Several weeks ago, I picked up a book called Sacred Rest. It was written by a physician named Sandra Dalton Smith. I was attracted to the book because so many people these days express being completely exhausted by this pandemic. Maybe you're one of them. On any given day, I am. I know how tough it's been. We've been exhausted by the uncertainty, the danger of the variants, the juggling of life with children and work and school, and, as we heard during our joys and sorrows, by the illness itself. And even people who have been comfortably isolated and well for almost 2 years, able to nap whenever they choose, describe feeling unrested. Dr. Dalton Smith contends that while the human body requires rest, there are different types of rest that are needed by each of us and achieved by different kinds of action. Physical rest, for instance, may be accomplished by sleep, but also could be aided by stretching and walking, by gentle movements like Tai Chi. She describes the need for mental rest, particularly these days as we have such a hard time shutting off our brains. She contends that our thoughts, our mental background noise, those words we say to ourselves only when we are listening, that mental noise, she says, is often infused with negativity. Our thoughts about the future may be filled with anxiety, and our thoughts about the past tainted with regret. Now, rather than sleeping away this anxiety, she prescribes stillness and meditation or prayer. And I love this one, turning off the news and turning on the music. This kind of rest refreshes our mind. She talks about many other types of rest, and the one that perked my interest the most for this sermon is what she calls spiritual rest. We need spiritual rest when our soul is wounded, that deep part of us, by the challenges of life. We do not find relief in sleeping when our spirit falls and when getting up on our own is just too hard. When the wounds of circumstance are deeper than we expected, our soul yearns for sanctuary. It yearns for connection. We yearn for home, where our heart can rest in a comfortable chair of acceptance of who we are, just as we are, with joys and sorrows, wounds, and all. At times like this, we need sanctuary, where we lay down the fight and rest for a while. And most of all, we need each other. When the soul is exhausted, the simple kindness of others is the healing balm. When the wounded spirit needs to tell its stories, others who listen and bear witness offer the sacred rest that is needed to mend the tears. And after reading all this, I thought to myself, well, this is church. This is what we offer to one another, spiritual rest and community. Even when being together physically is impossible, we connect heart to heart. So that led me to the next question. Well, what feeds the Unitarian Universalist soul? What sustains us during these times of challenge? It made me think back to the 1960s when the phrase soul food was coined to describe African American recipes that rose from the meager rations given to the enslaved in the southern US states. These foods fed not only the body, but more importantly, the part of the individual that needed to be connected to history, to family, to one another, and to home. Collard greens, black-eyed peas, rice and yams filled pots and bellies and hearts and souls. And as often follows from the insights from our African American siblings, many other American immigrant cultures identified their own soul food. There's pierogies and rice and beans and pasta and matzo ball soup. These are the humble foods that remind us who we are and where we come from. They remind us of home. And then I thought maybe coffee during coffee hour is the UU soul food. It's something we certainly have missed these last 2 years. In fact, I often make a pot of brewing coffee just before Zoom services, so my house smells like church. Try it, it's good. But I also think for us, words are food for the soul. It is our history and our birthright as UUs to wrestle with ideas and concepts. It's our history to discuss and challenge and doubt. It is our history to share, sometimes quietly, with one another our fears, our concerns, and our joys. But the words that feed our souls are not words of advice or judgment or criticism. They're words of kindness, understanding, and support. In fact, they're not only words we speak, but they're the words that we hear in the presence of others. When others bear witness to our deepest thoughts, our challenges, and our feelings, we are connected. We find food for our soul. And in the presence of others, we often hear ourselves more clearly. That shy soul emerges. In February, this church will begin a program called Soul Matters. It's a program that's followed by UU churches across the country. It offers a monthly worship theme that church members explore through services, sermons, and, if desired, small group gatherings. Here's how it works. Each month, a packet of resource material is shared with all church members and friends. The packet, designed specifically for Unitarian Universalists, is filled with resources about the monthly topic, such as articles, books, videos, podcasts, music. It's filled with a lot of different types of resources, so it can be relevant to anyone's perspective and belief system. The packet also has spiritual exercises and thought-provoking questions you can delve into if you choose. And each Sunday, the preacher tackles the topic through their sermon, adding their own spin, their own perspective, and insights. Now, this program's been around in UU churches since the early 2000s. It allows members to connect with one another and live their values by exploring the most relevant themes of our times. In fact, the churches that use the program actually choose the themes to be covered in the coming year. This has indeed been proven to be food for the soul for thousands of Unitarian Universalists. Another aspect of the program is the small group ministry called Soul Matters, where a group of people gather every month to share their feelings and thoughts about the topic. The group creates that sanctuary we talked about that we need for the spirit to rest. In a setting of non-judgment, we bear witness to one another's experience and wrestle what it means to be a UU at this time. Now, these groups are starting in February, and all are invited, but certainly not required to join one. You can find out information about them on the UUEA Facebook page or in the newsletter or in the special email from Mary that she asks you to open. And since I'll be running one of the groups here at UUEA, and since I've been running these groups for churches for almost 18 years now, I'll be offering 2 online information sessions this coming week. The first one is tomorrow night. So before this sounds too much like an advertisement, let's remember why we're here. We, friends, are Unitarian Universalists. We offer sanctuary for weary souls from anywhere. We offer acceptance and connection and non-judgment. We offer food for the heart and for the mind. We offer kindness and rest for the soul. I'd like to end my sermon today with a poem by the late UU minister, Nancy Schaefer. It's called Mending. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? What shall we use? And how is it in the first place you've come to be torn? Come, sit. Come, tell me. We'll find a way to mend you. I would offer you so much, sweet soul. This banana sliced in rounds of the palest yellow atop hot cereal. Or these raisins scattered through if you'd rather. I would offer you cellos in the background singing melodies Vivaldi heard and wrote for us to keep. I would hold out to you everything colored blue or lavender or light green. All of this. I would offer you, sweet soul, all of it, or any piece of it might mend you. I would offer you, sweet soul, this chair by the window, this sunlight on the floor, and the cat asleep in it. I would offer you my silence, my presence, all this love I have, and my sorrow that you've become torn. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? With these, I think gently, we will begin. We will mend you with a rocking chair, some raisins, a cat, a field of lavender beginning now to bloom. We will mend you with songs, remembered entirely the first time ever they are heard. We will mend you with pieces of your own sweet self, sweet soul. May it be so, and amen.
Please join me for the extinguishing of the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Reverend, closing words.
Dear friends, as we close our service, let us remember that even in this time of separation, we are connected heart to heart, soul to soul. We care for one another and we touch one another with our presence and our love. May you find rest in knowing that this community is your sanctuary. This church is your home. Amen.